Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Head to elixirspecialtycoffee.com and enter code IMAPITFORWARD to get 10% off your first purchase. Now, today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we're going to be talking about something that a number of people have contacted us about. It is the idea of Fairtrade Coffee. And so I'm not an expert on fair trade, but on Monday on the Map It Forward podcast, which is the sister version of the Daily Coffee Pro, we will have two people from CLAC, which co-owns Fairtrade International. So I'm going to be reading off some notes here to make sure that I get this right. Now, we are going to be having two really great guests. So first of all, we've got Alison coming on the podcast. So Alison's, and forgive me for not having their surnames here, but we've got Alison and we've got Merling. Now, so this is a little complex the way that this works. So Merling is the vice president of CLAC, and CLAC is the organization. If you translate it from Spanish into Australian, what CLAC stands for is the Latin American and Caribbean network of fair trade small producers and workers. And so CLAC co-owns Fairtrade International, the Fairtrade International system. But CLAC takes care of, or is the fair trade organization for Latin America and the Caribbean, or Caribbean, depending on how you say it and where you're from. There's 800 members across 24 countries in Latin America. So that's Central America and South America, and all the coffee producing regions in those areas, CLAC take care of. Okay, so Merling is the VP of CLAC, and Alison, Merling, is based in Nicaragua and is heavily involved in coffee farming. Alison is from Ohio, is American, was born and raised in Ohio, but now lives in El Salvador and is working directly with CLAC and is going to be working during this coming episode of the podcast, is going to be, as well as contributing a lot of information to the conversation, she's going to be translating for Merling. Now, why I wanted to talk about this in today's episode of the Daily Coffee Pro is because I want people to give a shit. I want people to understand how important this discussion is going to be. Now, Latin America is being hit massively with this coffee crisis. And it's really easy to know that these things are going on and know that it's atrocious what's happening, but find it a little too complex to give any fucks about. And so since I can't understand it, then why should I care? Because it's just going to be really hard to understand anyway. Well, no, because I'm going to a lot of effort to break things down for you and bring on board guests that can have discussions with us that help us understand in real people terms and non-legislative discussions what is actually going on. And this conversation is going to drive to the heart of what is going on in Latin America with regards to the price crisis in coffee. And Merling is particularly well versed at this because she has experienced the war in Nicaragua and was involved in watching the whole economy evolve from the war in Nicaragua and on. And so she knows what's really going on the ground and is in direct contact with how they are trying to influence in a positive way what's going on. Oops, sorry. And so when I reached out to these guys and said, hey, listen, it would be awesome if we could have a discussion and help people understand the real life situation of this. I knew I was reaching out to CLAC, but I didn't quite understand the relationship between CLAC and the Fairtrade International Organization. And I don't mind telling you that I didn't really understand what CLAC was, but I knew that they were somehow boots on the ground, able to really break down for us what's happening. And so, the fact that these folks are going to be able to tell us what they, as a part of the Fairtrade organization or Fairtrade International, are going to be able to tell us exactly what Fairtrade does for coffee farmers or producers and workers. Now, again, just to clarify, Fairtrade, so we're going to dissect that too. I was speaking with Alison yesterday. We're going to actually dissect in detail what Fairtrade does. But something that I really liked about what I was hearing yesterday in my off-air discussion with Alison is that everything that CLAC does is focused on the small producers. So these are the producers who are joining the caravans that are on their way to the border just south of where I am in San Diego, because the price crisis has affected them so much that they don't want to stay on their farms. They're leaving their countries. They are leaving their livelihoods because it's disappeared. So we're going to be able to get it right from the people who are on the ground, how this price crisis is really affecting small producers. And we're going to get it in terms that make sense to us. There is a different language that people speak when they are talking to diplomats and when they're talking to government officials and when they're talking to that. And I don't mind admitting that a lot of the time that kind of speak goes over my head, because they speak in acronyms that are assumed. They speak in agricultural terms that are assumed and I don't know about. But the great thing about the format of this podcast is it's a long format discussion, and we have the time to have different things broken down for us. And so this is going to be really exciting. It's going to be really exciting for us to understand, well, when the Fairtrade organization, the Fairtrade International organization goes in and through CLAC, because CLAC co-owns it, goes in and says that they're going to help these farmers. And they don't just represent coffee farmers. The top 5 agricultural products that they represent, number 1 is coffee, but they also represent banana, cacao, honey, and sugarcane. So they work with these small producers in the Latin American region to make sure that they're paid a base minimum price, which is different from the sea market price. If I remember correctly from my discussion yesterday, it is $1.40 for a pound of coffee for Fairtrade certified coffee, which is not huge, but it seems to be something that will cover the costs of the kind of coffee that Fairtrade covers. I'm sure it doesn't cover the price for specialty grade coffee, but most likely for commercial coffee, one would suspect. But again, I don't know, and this is the kind of questions that I want to ask Merling and Alison on Monday. So that's generally what I wanted to tell you today, and I want you to make sure that you tune in to the episode that happens on Monday with Merling and Alison. It will be available on podcast apps a few hours after we have it. And And just note, loads of people asked us to start talking about fair trade, and this is a really important subject because relationship buying, which is what specialty is trying to transition to, relationship buying doesn't have a certification standard. And it doesn't mean anything to most people around the world. And by people, I mean consumers. And so we've got to understand what the relationship is between fair trade and the producers / workers so that we know how to talk to people about fair trade. And is fair trade something worth getting in on? I suspect that fair trade isn't going to be delivering as much of a win as what relationship buying is doing. But right now, given that fair trade exists in Latin America and we've still got so many people leaving their homes and heading to the American borders in caravans, I suspect it's not working as well as it could. So we want to understand that right from the mouth of the people who are on the ground trying to do amazing things. So, peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day and be kind to each other. Oh, and before I go, Hani Ezat is going to be taking over our Instagram tomorrow. So, check out our Instagram at imapitforward and follow Hani along. He is a badass when it comes to being a head barista and as a professional in coffee. But we're going to be doing this much more often. We're going to invite coffee professionals from all over the world to take over our Instagram so that we can start as a global community getting an insight into what it means to be that specific type of profession in a different coffee culture. So, what it takes to be a head barista in Australia may be different than what it takes to be a head barista in China. Same thing with roasting, same thing with green buying, exporting, all of that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in getting involved in our Instagram takeover, email support@mapperforward.org and let's talk. And please include your Instagram handle. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.